You're listening to Rafa Said It Here, a podcast about spirituality, mental and emotional health, and the real stories of everyday people finding their way back to themselves. I am Rafaela Silva. Welcome to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rafa Said It Here. My name is Rafaela Silva, and welcome to another episode of my podcast. If you're new here, make sure you hit the follow button and also the subscribe and also the notifications so that you can get notified of my latest episodes. So, as always, we're going to get right into it. Today, I want to talk about exit points, encountering lives portals. The reason I wanted to have this conversation with you guys today was because I was outside the other day and I began to think about moments in my life where things could have ended. And the creator brought to my attention exit points, which I already had a few discussions in the past. But I never really talked about it. And one of the things that Spirit brought to my attention was exit points going forward, which leads me to the second reason why I believe the creator wanted me to have this conversation is because the times that we're living, the veil is thinning between the spirit world and the physical world. And I think we need to understand that this is a passage, right? We're not here forever. This is this is not the all be all. Now, will there be a time where we'll be here forever? Well, this is another conversation for another podcast. But for now, what Spirit wanted me to talk about is I want people to understand that they're here, they have chosen their lives, and I want them to understand how to move through it, right? And knowing your exit points, these life transitions, helps you understand the pattern, understand how to move and when to move. So that was the reason why I wanted to talk about this. Okay, and the second one is for us to live a life, slow down and appreciate the present moment a little more. Okay. And so before we get started, I want to read this quote by R.F. Kuang that says, "Life and death, they are equal to the cosmos. We enter the material world and we go away again, reincarnated into something better." So, what are exit points? Exit points are predetermined scheduled moments in your life decided by your soul. Our soul made this decision, okay? We put it on our soul calendar that gives you an opportunity to leave the physical state. Okay. So these are predetermined moments that we have set up for ourselves. When something happens, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, that give us an opportunity to leave. So these moments, these exit points are like what I like to call an evaluation that says, do you want to keep going or do you want to go, right? And it also, you guys, just so that you are clear, and I've said this before, don't know if I said it in my podcast, perhaps it was a post. Our lives in this plane, depending on what the agreement was not meant to be, not everybody's going to live to be 100. Not everybody's going to live to be 50. There are souls that enter this plane to be here for a few minutes sometimes and leave. Okay. So I want us to keep this in mind because in order for us to have this conversation, we have to understand that not everybody is here to live a very long, long, long life like some people do. Okay. So I just want to keep that in mind. And it's not to fear monger, it's so that you can really, like I said earlier, a few minutes ago, to live a life, slow down, and appreciate each moment of your life. Okay. So let's look at when these exit points occur. Near miss accidents. I'm sure you've known people. Actually, I'm sure you probably have experienced this. Let's say if you're running late to get to work or get somewhere, and all of a sudden you hear about an accident that happened, on the same road that you were about to take, and you're like, "Woo, I'm so glad that I didn't, take that I was late. I was running late, or else I would have been in an accident." Or you've heard about the plane that fell, and you're supposed to have gone in on that flight, and you missed the flight, right? And then you all of a sudden they announce that the plane crashed, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I was supposed to have been on that plane," right? So these are all when these near miss accidents occur or have occurred in your life. So if you're listening, also be a good idea to get a little piece of paper, okay? If you want to, you don't have to. But just I want you to start thinking, start writing this down. Also, before I go any further, we're going to be looking at Michael Jackson's exit points, okay, or possible exit points, okay. Just want to just say that. But back to near miss accidents. So think about situations you've been where you something happened that could have been your last day here on earth, right? Um, these are moments that are considered to be exit points, okay? So that's one. The second one, serious illnesses, okay? People that have had an illness or something happened where the doctor says you got 3 months to live and that person lived like 15 years. Those can be exit points. So let me give you an example. Let's say a doctor say you got 3 months to live, and the 3 months come and that person goes, right? It means that soul said, okay, I got 3 months, and in 3 months I'm gonna head out, right? Or during that review, because that's what your exit point, that's when you get that review. You might say, okay, here's here's the time you can go. And your soul might say, you know what? I think I want to stay a little longer. Okay. All of a sudden, that 3 months becomes 15 years, right? So, just to give an idea of these exit points, okay? Another one is near death experience, NDEs, people that have been in a coma or they're dying, they're not in their bodies anymore per se, but it's still somewhere hooked on like machines and some things like that. So these people have near death experience, and they're able to go to the other side. They're able to talk to their loved ones, and sometimes they go, sometimes they come back. Okay. One great story is Anita Morjani. If you have an opportunity, look her up on YouTube. She had a near death experience. She had stage 4 cancer, and she was, dying. People were saying their goodbyes, and she was out of her body already. She was able to actually see her family saying their goodbyes, and she's like, "No, I'm here." She has a really great story, so you might want to check her story, and I will talk a little bit more about her in a little bit, because I also am going to talk about when you have these reviews, when you have completed some of your excuse me, some of your purpose, right? Sometimes we stay because of someone else, which I'm going to talk about. And then we have major life transitions, and these can be anything from getting married, having children, becoming a grandmother, moving to another country, like major things that happen in our lives that are also exit point, because a lot of these major life transitions are, completions as well. Let's say if you finish school, maybe you came just to finish school, maybe you were at the school because of someone else's purpose, right? And then after you completed, you get that review. What do you want to do? Do you want to keep going? Do you want to stay? What is the next thing, right? Knowing also that we're always supported by our guides, okay? You get to choose, like I said, if you want to end, like I just mentioned, transition, or if you want to continue. Now, if you decide to stay, you go through what is called a living reincarnation, which we're going to talk a little bit about too, right? So, you know how you leave the earth and you come back? Sometimes you reincarnate while you're still alive, okay? Meaning sometimes you were destined, like you agreed to come for a specific purpose, and that purpose is fulfilled. Like, you fulfilled the purpose that you came. But if you decide to stay, and we're going to talk about this also, right, a little bit more, you go through what's called a living reincarnation. That means you are given a different purpose going forward. Okay, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. um why do they exist? Why do exit points exist? I like to say, like I mentioned, exit points are the soul's evaluation, or your pop quiz. I don't know why I put that there, you guys. But it's like, okay, have you learned the lesson? Have you understood this? What is it that we still need to go, through? Or a quick review to see how is it going, and check whether its mission has been fulfilled or if it needs to continue to further growth, right? So sometimes you came for something in particular, but it's like, you know what? It might be a good idea for you to learn a little bit more, right? So let's go ahead and keep going, right? So that is why they exist. How many exit points are there? So normally the soul gets about 5 exit points, which we're kind of going to see a good example with Michael's life. However, this can sometimes be fewer or even more. It all depends on the agreements made and at times request by the soul for more time, right? So, for example, like Anita Mojani is a good example of that. She was talking about when she had her NDE, she wanted to stay. She's like, I'm done. Like, I ain't coming back to that body with cancer, all of that. She's like, I'm not going back. And what she explains is that her guys told her, said, well, you still have agreement with your husband. Like, prior to coming, they made an agreement. And in order for him to fulfill on his purpose, she needed to be here. So she came back one, and her new agreement with them was, we'll make sure that when you go back, you have no cancer. Because she had understood some things, right? And so what also happened, her purpose changed when she came back. Her purpose changed when she came back, and she talks about that. So it's really cool. So it depends. So it can be 5. Sometimes it can be more, or sometimes it can be less, right? That's why the exit points exist. So sometimes it's 5, but it could have been 3, because in 3 you like, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to do all 5. I'm good to go. I can go, right? So that's how many are there. So what happens when we don't exit them? Okay, so 3 things occur. I mentioned before, living reincarnation takes place. Your purpose shifts. Okay, the purpose that you once had, it shifts. Okay, it can also cause what's called a jump in, or sometimes a soul's jump in. So there are situations where the agreement that you made to come and some of the things that you're dealing with, you're like, I don't think I can handle it, right? And what happens is another soul jumps in. And you're like, what? Yes, another soul might jump in. Now, you still your personality, but everything shifts about you. How you see the world, how you view life, up to the food that you eat, some of the habits you do. It's still your personality, right? But it changes. One situation that happened was with who talks about him being a jump in, was David David Yuen. He's the guy that wrote the Soul Contract, and he talks about his jump in, how he knew that another soul jumped in his body. It's still his personality, but it's someone that came to fulfill and finish the work. Okay. Also, what might also happen is the soul might face confusion or difficulties. We're going to look at that possible with Michael Jackson's story. Sometimes the soul just, things just don't work out. Things are just lingering. And you might be asked, well, why can't it just go? I said, well, it is the soul who decides, right? If you already accomplished everything, sometimes the soul might face a lot of difficulties if the soul stays. So you want to be clear. You want to make sure that what you came to do, you do it, so that you don't have to come back either. Okay. Sometimes, which is the case of also suicide. Now, this is not suicide. So exit points are not suicide. I just wanted to make that clear, guys. Forgot to make that clear in the beginning. They're not suicide. Okay. These are your points, your schedule points. Now, it brings up a case of suicide. What if someone takes their own life? Now, if someone takes their own life, um, in some situations, they might have to come back to finish the work. Okay. Um, Again, still free will, still a choice. There's no obligation, like it's no, you have to do. No, these are still your soul's choice. But if your soul decides that you wants to come back, then it's probably going to come back to fulfill on your mission that you didn't get to complete. Okay. Now, how do we calculate exit points? We're coming up to the exciting part. So, there are a couple of ways to calculate exit points. You can start with a life path number, which is what I use, life path number patterns. And an astrologer might also be able to help you do that. Because astrology is like, just like numerology is math. I always say we're mathematical, right? So there are a few ways, like I said, to calculate exit points. Some involve astrology, while others rely on numerology. I always say a good place to start is by looking at your life path number, okay, which can help determine when the exit points may occur. And a great way to do that is start first, which I'm going to show you with Michael, is by looking backwards. And you can begin to identify patterns in your life. So because everything is mathematical, you're going to see like how your life is pretty much programmed under the life path number. You'll be surprised how many things, because we're not paying attention, we're just think, oh, my birthday, my da 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 da. No, your life path number is all over what you do, certain events in your life path number is front and center. And when you start looking at those patterns, those number, those dates, situations, you begin to then kind of foresee like, oh, next year is a year review, or this particular month will be a month of review. You begin to look at these patterns going forward, okay? And we're going to look at Michael's. Can we determine when we're going to leave? Yes. Your soul is the one that decides on these points. So you're the one that decides when you're going to go, okay? At the same time, as I said before, it also made agreements with others, and often we stay to fulfill those agreements, if we have completed our own personal, the ones for our own personal growth. Okay, like I said with Anita, she had completed, but look, your husband still needs you to be there in order to complete the ones with other people. So sometimes you're still lingering around, like you don't finish your stuff, right? But you're lingering around because you made an agreement with these other folks that, you know, because you're here, it helps them fulfilling their purpose. Okay. All right. So let's look at the fun part. Let's look at Michael's um, life path number, some moments in his life that kind of determine um, his exit points. Okay. I didn't put a picture of him up there because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have any copyrights issues and things like that. So it's an AI image of Michael. And let me just point out, you guys, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. Michael was born on a full moon, 100%. Okay. So, all right. So let's look at Michael Jackson possible exit point. So I calculated through his life path number. So Michael was born August 29, 1958, and he died on June 25th, 2009. Now, his path light number is 6. How did I get that? So he was born August 29th, 1958. So you can figure out your own life path number, okay? You add the month, the day, and also the year that you were born in that particular way. So 0 plus 8 plus 2 plus 9 plus 1 plus 9 plus 5 plus 8 equals 42. We cannot have we have to kind of do a single number, okay? For life path number is from 1 through 9. So when you add 4 plus 2 is equals 6. So Michael's life path number was a number 6. Now he died on June 25th, 2009. When you add up those dates and numbers, you get 24 and 4 plus 2 is 6. So Michael was born on a 6 and he died on a 6. Okay. Another cool thing is that Michael was a Virgo. A Virgo is the sixth sign of the zodiac. So his Virgo sign is the sixth sign. Okay. His time of birth in universal time, so not his time of birth in Indiana, but his universal time was 0033, which is midnight, 33 minutes after midnight, right? So 3 plus 3 is equals to 6. Like I mentioned before, he was born in a full moon, illuminated 100%, and the moon age, or AKA lunar cycle, was 15 days. 1 plus 5, 6. Now, Michael also had moon and rising in Pisces, which is the 12th sign of the zodiac. So he had Pisces twice in his chart, both in moon. I'm sure he probably had more. I don't know, but I'm just doing moon, rising, and sun. Okay. So his moon and rising was in Pisces. It is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And so because he had him twice, I ended up, so I'm going to add this up. So 1 plus 2 is what? 3. And because he had him twice, 6. Now let's look at exit points in life transitions. Okay. So 1964, at 6 years old, he joined the Jackson 5. He was the 5th member of the Jackson 5. Okay. Another one is 1973, at 15 years old, 15, 1 plus 5 is 6. He released his third album, Music and Me. Okay. Now, I just wanted you guys to kind of, before I go any further, just want to let you know, I'm not putting everything about Michael, like every album he had, like none of those. I'm talking, these are the times where his life path number did these major things. Okay. So I'm going by his life whenever the years that it was his personal life path number. Okay. So 1982, at 24 years old, he released Thriller. 24, 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. Although, here's an interesting fact, Thriller was released 1982, Billie Jean, that is also in the album, was released on January 2nd, 1983, which became, so January 2nd, 1983 equals 24, 2 plus 4 equals 6. And it became his biggest hit from that album, and he had a total chart runs of 24 weeks. 2 plus 4 is 6. In 1991, here's what gets interesting. At 33 years old, 3 plus 3 is 6, he released Dangerous. This is also the album where Michael had a lot, like he was going through a lot of problems, people in his life and his business. They were telling, saying, leave him alone. I don't know if you remember that song. So Michael was really like, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. There's a lot of things going on in his life, personal life. People were just going into his personal life and he just couldn't take it anymore. Now, I like to call that also a little bit of, even though I didn't put under the chaos, which we're going to be talking about, at that moment, I think, this is my belief. I'm not saying this is what it is, okay? Was the moment that Michael was supposed to be leaving. I believe that 33, it was the moment that Michael was like, it's time to go. And he's like, nah, I'm going to stay, okay? Before I go into, so I want to stop here for just a second, okay? Let's just jump a little bit here. So 1991, he released Dangerous, okay? At 33. 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, I just want to jump really quick because when he released Dangerous, okay, excuse me, which I believe was probably his final exit point after that, Michael decided he was going to stay. And remember, I talked about what happens when you have fulfilled your purpose, like when you have like completed your mission, and sometimes things get difficult if you don't, like if you decide you want to stay. So I thought it was interesting that after he released Dangerous, a couple of years later, he was accused. He had his accusations, right? So if you look at the dates down here of the accusations that he had, August 17, 1993, August 18, 1993, August 24th, 1983, 1993, and then August 25, excuse me, 1993. All of these, when you add these dates up, you get 38, 39, 36, 37. When you add them up, you get 150. 1 plus 5 is 6. Or if you add them up individually, you get 42, and 4 plus 2 is 6. I thought it was interesting that right after he released Dangerous, which I believe that was it. Like, I feel as though after Thriller, maybe around 33 before he released Dangerous, I believe that this was a time for Michael um to go. And here's another thing that happened right before Dangerous. Um well, let's start 1976. 1976, he left the Jackson 5, another big transition, right? So sometimes he had chaos with the number 5. So he left the Jackson 5. He had a Pepsi incident on January 27, 1984, which adds up to 5, which is one day before a 6. If you add the next day, you get a 6. And he settled out of court for 1.5 million. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So he had the Pepsi incident after Thriller, right? So started the issues begin right here with first exit point transition, Jackson 5. He was supposed to continue. He did Thriller, right? After he did Thriller, Pepsi incident. So that's that near, the near that accident, that he missed. And I believe his review was right here in 1984. But he decided to continue and did Dangerous, right? Then what I thought it was really interesting was when he released Invincible, which was his last album, his last studio album. He was 42. 4 plus 2 is 6. And I think here he was fighting because his fifth track on that album was Heaven Can Wait. Heaven Can Wait. Not can, but can wait. Where he was saying, I don't want to, he says, I don't want to leave my baby alone. That's the chance I'll take. Maybe I'll stay. Heaven Can Wait. So I think he knew, like, I know that I'm supposed to be going, but heaven can actually wait. I don't want to go. And many reasons. A lot of times we want to say because of love. Like, he had his children. He probably didn't want to leave his babies, right? So 2009, just short of a few months of his 51st birthday, he passes away. Okay. He would have been 51. 5 plus 1 is 6. Michael. I loved Michael Jackson. He was such a wonderful soul. So these are some examples of exit point life transitions, okay, that happens. They kind of give you an idea that these are moments that you had a life review or they were your exit points. So one of the things that I would do is begin to, first of all, add your date of birth. So, for example, on Michael, I'm going to send you Michael's example. So you're going to take a date of birth and you're going to add it just like this. You're going to take all the numbers and add them up. And if you come up with a 2-digit, make it into a single digit. And that's your life path number. And then begin to look the time that you were born. Look at the lunar cycle, like that year. What lunar cycle was the moon? Like in Michael's case, it added up to 6. In my case, mine also adds up to my life path number. Okay. Begin to look at where in your life do these numbers show up. Okay. And then look at your life, take an inventory of your life and begin to look at times when you had these incidents, begin to look what date that was or what year that was, or how old you were. Like all those things count. When you begin to look at these similarities, you begin to say, wow, look at all my exit points. And then when you have that calculation, you're able to then begin to go to start looking at everything from that perspective, right? You begin to say, oh, let's go do whatever date. You would say, let me see what that one number that is. Not out of fear, but just to begin to take steps in your life that are aware, like you're aware of. Let me just say another thing, okay? I don't know if Michael did this, like I'm going to release a album on my uh, personal life path year. He could have had, I don't know. But let me just say this: whether you're aware or not, you're going to start learning, you're going to start seeing that a lot of things that happen in your life is designed by you, and is designed to land on some of these numbers. Like me, for example, the other day I was counting my tattoos. And I've counted my tattoos so many times. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, without realizing that my tattoos were the same as my life path number. I also realized that the day that I moved in my new place was added up to my life path number. Didn't even think about it. But when you begin to look at these moments in your life that were transitions, um, when you had children, sometimes also, think about, like I said in the beginning, think about life transitions, near death experience, accidents. Like begin to start looking at these dates to see what is the common denominator, for lack of a better word, but where your life path number shows up. And when you begin to do that, you begin to understand how it works and how you can actually begin to set up things, or even say, like, where do you want to go? Like, listen, is your soul, is your moment. And you can determine, like, I want to go this particular date. You can actually determine that. Okay. But here's a cool thing. And we're going to end this podcast. The release date of Michael the movie here in the US is on the 24th of this month. And 24 is what? It's 6. I wish I could make this up, but I can't. I did not make this up. Is what actually happened. So, anywho, you guys, thank you for joining me. I hope you guys have fun. If you have any questions, please send me a DM on Instagram. I had a good time looking into Michael's life. I hope you enjoyed it. And but if you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram, either at I am Rafaela Silva or Rafa Silva. Rafa said it here podcast. Okay. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you subscribe. Bye. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Rafa Said It Here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can get notification of my latest episode. Sending you love.